go ahead and call this meeting to order. Shelby County Supervisors, Tuesday, March 7th. You guys have any conflict of interest on anything on the agenda today? Okay. Any additions to the agenda, Mark?
No, sir.
Motion to approve the agenda is presented.
Motion approved. Sorry.
Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Chance to look over the minutes from February 21st.
Yes.
Any correction, changes, Mark?
No.
Motion to approve minutes is presented.
Motion.
Motion by Bryce.
Second.
Second by Charlie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next, we have claims that were posted for February 28th. Any questions on that?
None.
Nope. Okay, do I have a motion to approve claims as presented?
Motion approved. Second.
Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Anybody have any committee reports?
Just that John Thomas wanted to be on the agenda. That's all I had.
And I just visited with him, and he'll be here on the 4th with the Hungry Canyons Alliance. Just to give us an update. He said it had been a year or two since he'd been here.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to give a little update on the Summit lawsuit. After our meeting 2 meetings ago, when we had the Summit here, and we talked about Summit not following our ordinance, Summit that week filed a federal injunction on our lawsuit, which means they want us to not, it's enforced as we sit today, but they want us to not enforce it until the lawsuit is settled next January. So they filed an injunction in federal district court, and our attorneys, Tim Whipple and Jason Craig with Allers, sent their brief arguments why that should not happen. And this week, I think it's this week, Summit has until to reply to that, and then federal judge and district court will decide whether there will be an injunction on us until the lawsuit, or we can continue on and follow through with our ordinance. Did I miss anything, Tony?
That sounds current.
Okay, so that's where we're at. So probably by the end of this month, a judge will be ruling on that.
Basically, the clock's on pause right now for any incurrence of fines or
Right.
violation letters and things like that.
Yep. So seems to be ever changing. So I just wanted to keep you updated what was going on there. So, okay.
Appreciate that.
You guys have anything else?
No.
Okay. Next on the agenda, Tony Buman, assessor update on assessments. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Tony?
So just kind of some background here. Per state code, every 2 years in Iowa, in an odd numbered year, so 2023 is an odd numbered year, it's a what we call a reassessment year. And that's the year where we need to look at values as they have been determined by the assessor's office and determine whether they need to be changed. And so for the properties that are to be based on market value, industrial, commercial, and residential, it's looked at sales over the prior year. Sometimes there's some state appraisals that are thrown into the mix and so on to determine if our assessments are adequate reflecting that. And Friday, we mailed out assessment notices for commercial industrial properties. It's a little bit more complicated than just what the market did because this was the end result of the commercial reappraisal project that my office had done, where we hired Vanguard Appraisals, a company we work with quite often, that went out and visited all of the commercial and industrial properties last year, reviewed our records to make sure they were current and that the information we were basing their value on is what they actually had. And conditions hadn't changed, things hadn't been removed or added and so on. So that's a factor in the assessment notice that went out. It's also a new cost manual that we went to. We had been on the state 2008 cost appraisal manual, and we just went to the 2020 cost manual, which means the cost of materials in our replacement cost manual have shifted considerably with over a decade of change in it. And some materials like steel and so on grew proportionally compared to other types of materials as well. So there's those factors in there. we reset our depreciation tables, we updated land values under the properties. And all of this goes in together with these new assessment notices that were just mailed on Friday. Some people received them yesterday, apparently a lot of them received them today, letting them know what we were estimating the value of their commercial and industrial properties are as of January 1st of this year. It's the first time in many years that the value has shifted. But just if I look at the commercial sales we had last year alone, there were around 11 of them in Shelby County. The median sale price was about 23% higher than our assessed value. So even if nothing else changed, we weren't going to a new cost manual, we hadn't visited properties to make sure we have current information, we'd still be seeing about a 23% increase typically within the county. And when we talk median of course is always the middle number. So that means even if yours went up 23%, half of them out there went up somewhat more, and of course some went up less, but that's the median. And if we don't make the change now up front and at least try to reflect the location of the business, is it in country or in town, is it in Harlan or one of the smaller communities, then this fall the state would just issue it across the board order that all businesses, regardless of where you are or what you do, went up around 23%. So it's painful, but it's also doing the right thing, and in the long run, it should be more equitable to everybody. Residential, we're still working on finalizing the numbers, and they'll be mailed sometime towards the end of the month. We need to have a postmark by April 1st, but we're looking for about a 23% increase again on residential as well. So what that means is in the last 12 months, the year 2022, the typical sale price of a home in the county was around 23% higher than our assessed value. And what's interesting is 2 years prior, in 2021, we'd raised values at that point around 20%. So these new higher values are 20 to 23% too low again. I've had some folks say, well, with interest rates where they are and so on, things are changing. Could be. We're based on past experience. We can't predict the future. I can't look at just a month or two. It's based on the entire year, January through December of last year. My initial impressions for early this year is we're not seeing as many sales, but they tend to be strong when they're coming in yet. So we'll see if 2 years from now things are significantly down or flat, we'll adjust accordingly. But I have to go on history, and if I don't make those changes now and again try to reflect where the properties are located, town versus country, one town versus another town, then the state will just across the board issue a flat order in the fall. And for the first time, I don't know exactly, but it's been years, probably a decade, we're going to see ag values go up this year as well. And ag values in Iowa, for the sake of property taxes, are based on the productivity formula. And this is a 5-year rolling average that's calculated in Des Moines, and it looks at each year at a county level. So they're looking at Shelby County specifically, each year of those prior 5 years that are in the study, how many acres of corn were in production, for instance, how many bushels of corn did we get? What was the average value based on something like Chicago Board of Trade? And they do that for all sorts of crops, including the ones we don't have in Shelby County. There's hard-coded factors in there for capitalization rate that's built right into it. There's factors in there for insurance and various other things. It's like an 89-page document if you ever want to read it on how you're supposed to calculate this. I'm very grateful we don't have to calculate it at a county level. And basically what it does is it kicks out this number that says this is the total value in Shelby County for agricultural production. And then they give us a factor of so many dollars per acre in the county. To apply that though, we then have to look at CSRs, the corn suitability rating for the soils. So all of Shelby County has been soil mapped, and different types, we know where all the different types of soils are, and each type of soil has a rating, basically for quality. The higher the number, in theory, the better quality corn crop you could get, assuming prudent management conditions. And those CSR points, it's divided in there that it basically comes down to be $1 per CSR point. And then it's relatively simple, if any of this is simple, to multiply so many dollar points per CSR times the number of CSRs in the acre times the acres to come up with the total value for the ag land. And then there's some adjustments made for cropland versus not cropland. So for instance, if it's a high quality soil underneath the building site, it gets an adjustment down a little bit. Or if it's in some trees along the creek that you can't get into, there's some adjustments there. Nowhere in there in that formula did I mention buildings, and that's because buildings aren't in the value. So for instance, like when the dairy went up some years ago by Kirkman, it was a $6 million project or something like that at the time. It added $0 to the value in Shelby County because all the building value is then backed out of before the land is applied. So let's just say our ag value is like $800 million. We first of all figure out how many ag building dollars are, let's just say 20 million. We back that out before we apply it to all of the land. So any new construction in grain bins, machine sheds, confinements, anything like that, are then offset by reductions in the land value to come back to that original number that the state said we had. So that's one of the interesting points is, we look at large confinements and things like that, need to support the road for the traffic and things like that, but in actual upfront property taxes, it's not contributing any additional value to the county. Now, I know we can argue about, opportunities for families and various things like that, and I don't mean to minimize that, but from a property tax standpoint, it doesn't add anything. So this is a year with
They do pay
5-year.
property taxes though.
But they do pay property taxes, yes, they definitely pay property taxes. It's just, if I put up a grain bin, everyone else's is shifted to the point they probably didn't notice it. But those bins and confinements are being taxed. It's just the overall value of the land has been shifted downwards county-wide to absorb that. And then ag buildings for this year, we figure out the value of it with depreciation, and then we take 75% of that off because it's an ag building. So if Bryce and I are neighbors, I'm a farmer, Bryce is a rural resident, and we both get the same machine shed company to put the same steel utility building up, and it was a $100,000 building, the farmer of us is going to have a value of around $25,000, and the non-farmer is going to have a value of $100,000 for it. And that's just the way it works. So we'll see those ag values went up as well, and again, that'll probably be like the last week of March if those go well. The commercial properties, in the assessment notices that went out, there is a letter saying that they wanted to meet with one of the folks that helped set the values from Vanguard. Harlan is his name. He will be here next week, Wednesday, Thursday, and part of Friday. So if they would like to meet with him, if they've got information that might be useful, that would help with the value, they can call my office and make an appointment. If they can also talk to me, we can talk informally. And then, of course, there's the official appeal petition, which starting April 2nd, I believe, they can file through the end of the month if they want to appeal to the local board of review, which can make an adjustment. But if you're hoping to have a value changed, you need to be able to show why it should be different than our value. One of the common discussions I have is, well, it went up too much. And so I ask, well, is this value reflect market value? Well, sure, but it went up too much. All that matters is this the right value, whether it went up or down or sideways. Our goal is the value, and if we use formulas and so on to try to come up with something that values everything regardless of not whether it's sold, and so I need something specific to get off of that formula if there's a reason that we're going to change your value. And I'm not saying it can't be done, but just keep in mind that there's a lot of information and good faith effort that goes into the values in the first place. So, any questions? Should be an interesting year.
They don't make it simple, that's for sure.
They don't make it simple.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Todd Mullane, Chamber update. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Todd, how are you?
Doing well. Just a couple of notification items. One for the public. March is National Nutrition Month, and here we are once again. We find that our Shelby County Food Pantry is really in need of a lot of donations. So we're just asking folks when they go grocery shopping if they can grab an extra can of whatever, or some breakfast bars or a box meal or whatever, and drop it off over here at West Central. They could really use it because we're just seeing a heavy need here in the county for that service right now. And they're having trouble keeping up with the demand. One that's kind of fun, so as Milk and Honey keeps building out their new facility, they've come up with the idea of above one of their main serving areas, they're going to kind of display a feature of barn quilts from throughout Shelby County. So what they're asking is if you have a barn quilt, if you just take a good picture of it and email it to them at milkandhoneyiowa@gmail.com. They'll be using those to design what they're gonna put up above their serving area. So that'll just be a nice, unique little way to kind of keep something that, you know, will be an attractive for visitors coming in to see. March 18th, so a week from this Saturday, we'll have our next legislative coffee. That'll be at 10 a.m. It'll be out again at the chamber out at our atrium, and it's going to be sponsored by Town and Country Credit Union, so we thank them for that. And then Iowa Western's offering the Board of Education Examiners substitute authorization course for substitute teachers for K through 12. We're in a big need for substitute teachers, and this is something that you can take. It's either March 18th or 19th, so it's only a 2-day deal, or April 26th, April 22nd and 23rd. It's a $260 tuition, but after you complete the certification, as long as you have, you know, a background in whatever you're wanting to substitute teach in, you can pick up a little extra dollars doing some substitute teaching, especially if you're like somebody who's semi-retired or what have you. And it would be big help for the school district, because right now, like I said, substitute teachers are in high demand. So hopefully we can get a few folks to go through that course. Other than that, that's about it for now. We've got five businesses we're helping right now. So hopefully within the next 6 months to a year, we'll see 5 new businesses popping up here in Shelby County.
Oh,
That's good.
See how it goes. They're all in different levels. Nobody's ready to go public with what they're doing yet. So, yeah, a lot going on.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, sir. Next, Brandon, County Engineer Report. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Brandon.
Just a brief update today. Hauling rock to spots and blading kind of as weather allows. And there's a lot of roads that need some TLC right now, so we're trying to get spots covered, got everything rolling, plus some privates hauling straight to the road. So
Okay.
that'll probably shut off today with the impending weather, but trying to get as much out there as we can. Bridge crew, they've been fixing some bridge approaches and prepping materials for summer projects. I think they're kind of chomping at the bit to get out of the barn and start working on stuff. So speaking of bridges, Chris and I probably starting bridge inspections here next week or the week after. Probably take us 8-10 days, something like that, depending on what we find, but we'll get through them pretty quick. So we make a good team. We kind of know what each one looks at, and it works out well. Talked to Western a week ago. I guess my understanding from them, they probably won't start F-24 till later on in the summer, just with how everything's gonna work out. So they were trying to find a spot for their mobile plant. I think they found one local that's not on one of our roads, so that's all good news. It's not very much fun when they have to haul their mix from Council Bluffs, and they're limited by trucks and how many hours the guys can drive, and the project takes a lot.
Do we have
longer.
any property that could help them out?
I think they've located one.
Okay.
Most of our stockpile locations just aren't big enough. Well, they gotta have a couple acres there for a big
okay.
lay-down yard, so.
Okay.
But I think they've located one.
Okay.
So, plan on presenting 5-year plan next meeting, just kind of putting the finishing touches on that, and present that and kind of the final budget, and have the sheets to sign for the DOT, because mine's still due the 15th of April, even though the county budget is not due till the 30th. But,
Okay.
and then kind of like we talked, Steve, we'll continue to monitor the road conditions the next couple days. If we get a lot of misty rain, and I think most of the frost is out, so
Yep.
monitor, and if we need to put the embargo on, we're ready to put that on.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I would suggest you do if things materialize, because
Yep.
we put it on for a few days and we
take it back off.
take it back off once it dries up.
Yeah, no, and we're ready. That's why we passed that resolution in January, but we pass it hoping we won't have to use it, but we're ready to use it if we do
Okay.
have to. So,
Sounds good.
yeah, that's all I have for today. So,
Okay.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Cost advisory service authorization. So this is something we've done as long as I've been on the board. I don't know if you want to talk about it, Mark.
Right, it's administrative costs that the county incurs for the Department of Human Services, and it's allowed, and we hire a company. Other auditors, I've been told in the past, it takes about 3 weeks of all their free time to complete this report, and Shelby County, as most other counties do, they hire cost advisory services to perform those duties for us, and it's a little over $4,000 a year to do it. And we submit the reports to them. That's all the county does. And this year, it's a little over $24,000 we'll be getting back in reimbursements for our administrative costs. And it covers many departments. It's
Countywide.
yeah, the fingers of DHS reaching. It costs the county money to administer those things. My office is writing checks. There's all kinds of programs out there that it just costs the county to administer those problems.
I don't know, I visited with them down at ISAC a couple years ago. And at that time, there was only 2 or 4 counties that didn't participate. I don't know if they're 100% now, but I can imagine somebody
I'm
trying to do
guessing those
this.
counties have finance directors.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, it's something we've done every year. It's kind of no-brainer, not kind of, it is a no-brainer. So, do I have a motion to move forward with that?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Auditor transfer authorization.
Okay, what this is to try and mend this year's budget and future budgets. It's some ideas that we've had some brainstorming sessions, and I'll just go through them one at a time. The capital fund to the general basic fund. Some of the departments gave up reserves that they have. Secondary roads and the sheriff's department gave up the biggest share. Building and grounds gave up a pretty good share. And that'll go back into the general fund, and that's where it came from to begin with. Rural basic fund to the general fund. Last year, I made a mistake and transferred too much money to, wait a minute, rural basic fund to the general fund. Yeah, that's correct, a transfer that was not budgeted in the county budget for fiscal year 2022. Also, secondary roads fund to the rural basic fund to cover unbudgeted expenditures in the county budget for fiscal year 2022. And that is the one where I overpaid secondary roads by $100 and some thousand. And this will take it back. Because there is a need for the cash. The auditors authorized to transfer rural basic fund to the general fund to supplement the cost of patrol of the sheriff's department in rural areas of the county. Several counties pay their sheriff's department out of rural basic. Shelby County does not. They pay it out of general basic. And yearly, there is a transfer made to the general fund from the rural basic fund to supplement the cost of patrol. But the lion's share of tax dollars are still coming from general basic in Shelby County. So this is just to get some more money into the general fund, and it's sitting there in the rural basic fund and would be carried over into the next year anyway. And those are the 3 authorizations that I don't have that I need from the supervisors.
You guys have any questions? This all come recommended by our accountant with Allers, Grunwald.
Yep.
So, okay. And this will make our workout plan go like we had planned. So, do I have a motion to approve the authorization?
Motion.
Second by Bryce, second by Charlie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next on the agenda is set a hearing date of March 21st at 9 o'clock for a public hearing regarding the consideration and possible passage of a resolution officially determining the levy and cost funding recommendations for EMS, which is our essential services. I don't know, do you want to talk to this, Mark, or? Alex?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, come on up. It's part of, I know we've been working with Marcus. He set up a timeline of things we need to have in order for the boat that will be coming up. Is it November 3rd? Is that correct? Mark?
I can't tell you off the top of my head. I can't.
Okay, it's first Tuesday. in
First Tuesday
November.
after the first Monday in November.
This sets the stage for that. We'll have a public hearing. The advisory council will be coming to us at that public hearing, saying what the levies will be, so people know well in advance of how this will be funded, what budgets will be, correct?
Correct, yep. The advisory council that you guys had appointed started meeting, and they approved a not temporary, but a draft plan, because they want to not only give a recommendation of what the fundings will be, but how they're going to use, or how they think those fundings should be used to support EMS in the county. So that's what they're planning on coming with, or we're planning on coming with at the next meeting.
Okay. So we'll have that, you'll get that to us prior to the meeting.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And then we'll have that public hearing then. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
You guys have any other questions?
No?
Okay. Should have a motion to approve setting the public hearing for March 21st.
You make that motion?
Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Budget discussion set max levy hearing and publication for March 28th. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes, you have it.
Okay. And you have the public notice for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the public notice, and I apologize, I don't have copies here. Public notice came out, and you guys can decide, you cannot go a penny higher. It's an 8.62% increase is what is going to be published, and you can do anything that from that amount all the way down to wherever you want to go, but you can't go over that. For rural basic, and that's for general basic and general supplemental. For rural basic, it's at 8.13. And there just has to be some fine tuning and find places where things may be able to get cut.
Right.
I did some looking, and I thought it was interesting this morning. I was doing it right before the meeting. I thought, okay, the dollars increase. The supervisors told all the departments they had to stay at 5.5% this year. And so at that 5.5% increase that was allowed, not everybody did that full 5.5%, some were right on it, and they needed to be. And if you take that 5.5% out, and these transfers and inflation eating up some of our reserves, there's only a $218,000 increase to rebuild those reserves with that allowed 5.5%. So it's
tough.
It looks hard. I'd be dishonest if I said I didn't have guilt looking at this like this, but when you look at that 5.5% and people spending, they're cutting areas to be able to pay wages. And they're cutting back spending. I've cut back spending. I don't, every department is cutting back spending. And
Well, we had some.
I wouldn't say we haven't lost any services, everything's fine, but what the supervisor's line of thinking on all this, I think, is well thought out.
Well, and I mean, people are making sacrifices, and we've made some significant cuts in some different areas. And I anticipate this max levy, like in the past, our final will be lower than that, but it's not going to be significantly lower, but it will be lower. But I don't have to tell everybody. Everybody feels, whether you're going to the grocery store or you're buying something. I mean, when the CPI, the cost of living out there, is right in that same range from, 7 to 8.5%. It's just the cost of doing business when we're used to, that 3%, I wish we could be there.
And we've had to cut areas and not spend at the inflation rate to try and build those reserves.
Right.
It,
Yeah,
it is that simple.
yeah. Okay, so do I have a motion to set the max levy rate for hearing date on
Yep.
March 20th?
And the publication, yes.
Yep.
Motion.
Motion by Bryce.
Second.
Second by Charlie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, and now's the time for the overview of the IT audit.
I would like to recess for a second while I go get a department head.
Okay.
May I do that?
Joel? Micah?
Come on in.
Pull up chair here. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Yeah, you sit in the important seat.
Pull a chair over here.
I'm good here if everybody's okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll kind of just step it. I'll step it back here. Thank you. It's my best feature, actually. Well, thanks for having us back here again.
You bet.
You guys all have a copy of the report?
Yep, I do.
All right.
I will say while we're waiting, we're gonna do a high-level review of the audit. And because of security reasons, at the end of this board meeting, towards the end, we'll be going in closed session to get into the weeds with it because of security reasons. And then we'll be coming out of that meeting, there'll be no other business done after that, so. Okay? And Mark went to get a department head that wanted to participate in this discussion here. Good thing it isn't tomorrow morning, right? Traveling?
Yes.
Thank you.
Last time. Yeah. A little snow last year.
Gentlemen, go ahead.
Well, thank you for having us back again. As you guys know, we had a team of about, I guess I should count how many we actually had. We had a team of 8 of us here. And, we spent right around, 24 hours looking at your environment. And, that's a snapshot in time, right? So, in this report, we listed what we found, we listed solutions to what we found. But it's not going to necessarily be exhaustive, right? It's a snapshot in time from what we found. So in this report, we have a number of findings, we have a number of recommendations, and some things like that at the end of the report to handle those findings, and we can go over those in more detail, later on. But overall, we were here 5 years ago, and I think our findings are similar in terms of where we were at 5 years ago.
If not worse.
Right.
Yeah.
And so our recommendations are going to be very similar to what we made 5 years ago. There's equipment that has to be updated. There's some changes I think strategically that need to be made, and so that's kind of what we found. So happy to answer any questions that you may have. Obviously, you may have more once we start going through the report in detail. But happy to answer any questions you might have at this point for us just generally about the report.
I will start out by looking at the report. I want to thank you. It's very detailed. It's a good guideline of what we need to do moving forward. You put a lot of thought into that, and yeah, it gives us a good template of what we need to be doing over the next few years.
It's very well done. Even a guy that doesn't understand computers like me can somewhat grasp a little bit what's going on in there. So
Yeah.
I appreciate how you guys did it.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing we want to leave everybody too is, this is not just throwing the report at you and saying goodbye. I mean, we'll be here to support you folks through whatever process you're going through. So, part of my new job, my name's Joel Roney. I used to be with Worth County, the IT person there. I'm now with ISAC. I'm now the program manager for the Technology Service Bureau, which is a brand new program that ISAC has stood up. And what my job is to provide technology resources for counties across the state. So you can see ISAC is really starting to dig in a little bit more just because of the technology needs that counties are seeing and those increases in those technology needs. So that's one thing we do really want to leave with everybody here is, you know, we are always available for questions, for comments. Hey, what do you guys think about this? You know, so going forward, we'll be a partner with you on this journey.
I'll also say, you know, Charlie and I were on the board 5 years ago, and I know when you get into the weeds of this report, one of the things they brought out then, and they're really bringing out now, is that we need somebody full-time here on board. And the board resisted that 5 years ago for a couple reasons. I know one of mine was getting somebody in place, and, you know, unless you can pay them a very fair salary, keeping them here. And I really didn't know, I'm not the tech person. I didn't know if we had enough work for one person, you know? And of course, I asked you guys a lot of questions the last meeting.
Yes, which are good, which is good.
Yeah.
But all these guys are the tech guys, and it was overwhelming. Yes, you do have enough work here to keep one person busy.
Yes.
And cover our 911, because that's been a big issue of downtime that we've had. And another thing that's always concerned me, we've had lack of communication, and I'm not blaming the support group we've had, we hired coming in. It works both ways.
Sure.
Okay. And we've not did a very good job at the county level planning. And I feel if we get, and it works both ways too. But I felt on technology here at the county level, we've been more reactive instead of proactive. And I feel getting somebody in here that this is their job, this is the expectation, here's where we need to go. You guys have laid out a great plan just for somebody to follow. I think that time has come because we're falling behind, like Joel had said. That's good from that 5-year report. You can see where we were. And some areas we've held our own, but some areas more areas than we want to admit have gone backwards.
Well, I mean, county government is a can't-fail situation. I mean, you've got a 911 system, you've got law enforcement, you've got elections, and technology is wrapped around all of those different facets of the county.
Right.
And you folks have had some failures here that are just not acceptable. So, you know, really need to look at a technology plan, hopefully, that we can help you with where, you know, those kind of failures just don't happen.
Right.
You can keep those systems running.
And these fellows stuck around after the last presentation and helped go through the budget with Taryn. Because my biggest concern is, just like with everything, is the costs and the budget. And so if we can hopefully hire somebody and stay within our budget, there's some things around, the board would be very open to that, and they were able to do that. So I thank you for that. Yeah, I want to see communication get better, and I want to see us have a plan, and that we cut down on our downtime that we have, especially 911. So
One thing the public would be very interested in is election security. And like Joel, Taryn, and myself all know what goes into that. And we've been lacking there. I mean, it's been done.
we've gotten by.
Yes.
That's probably the best
And
way to
that's
say
just it.
Right.
And you guys know exactly what it takes, and
Yeah, and that's one of the areas, again, like Joel mentioned, the state, well, and somewhat the feds too, you know, they're supporting, but they're pushing security in those areas, right? And they're
Constant.
making, and usually what happens is, sometimes what happens is the state will sit still for 2 years, and then shortly before the election, they'll throw requirements at you when you're already worried about other stuff with an election, right? And so that's where, you know, you need to be quickly reactive, but your folks are already busy doing elections. So,
Then you have, in our current situation, you have non-employees and trying to get them jacked up and,
Right.
and telling them this has to be done.
yeah.
And so, and with employees, with election security, I think there's a lot bigger hammer hanging over their head.
Yeah.
Not only legislative, but then also insurance too. I mean, we're
That's
seeing a
correct.
huge push from the insurance companies for cybersecurity. So, and the requirements to keep your cybersecurity insurance in place has been, it's really started to come to ground.
Yeah.
We have a lot of the department heads here right now, so you guys had said, I just want to make sure everybody hears that. As we move forward, you guys are always there to help us, whether it's defining some recommendations in here, helping us reach those goals.
Yeah, so the very first county we ever visited with our tech team audit, Emmett County, that was 12 years ago now.
2011.
Yep. So we visited them, and at that time, we made some recommendations to them, and they did some of those. But now they're in the process of hiring somebody, and so we visited them again. 11 years later, talked to their board, and just went over everything. So, like we said, it hasn't. We've been around for a while doing this,
Yeah.
and we've helped a number of counties wherever they're at, whatever decision the board makes, the department heads make. We'll walk you through that and help you out.
And then afterwards, if you do happen to hire an internal person or something like that, we can have mentoring capabilities here. We can guide that person, give them a bunch of resources that we have so they don't have to relearn the whole job from scratch.
Awesome. Well, what I like, having the same people, the same outfit, come back and do an audit, every 5 to 7 years, it's eye-opening.
Sure.
Because it's that same people looking at it. And so I do appreciate, I really do, what you guys do and how you can help us.
Yeah.
So, does anybody from departments have anything to say, a question for these guys before we move on? I know Taryn will be speaking here in a little bit on a different topic, but related. So, anybody else have anything? Okay, that's always a good sign. Okay, thank you, and stick around here, we'll have our closed meeting here in a little bit.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you guys. Next on the agenda, Taryn Knapp, she's our IT coordinator, will give a report on current IT and support contracts and IT committee recommendations moving forward. Good morning.
Morning. So just based on that, with audit findings and the IT committee meeting and current standings with our current provider, everybody unanimously has
Everybody on IT committee?
on the IT committee has recommended that we hire an internal person. Also, the current contracts are set to renew July 1, and it's recommended that we don't renew those contracts July 1.
With our outside provider, which is
With-
ThinkSpace.
Yep, our current provider, ThinkSpace. So the committee recommends that we not renew those and notify them that we're not going to renew those contracts.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I've talked about it, just what we said, I mean, we've seen this coming, and I think we need to make that step. So, you guys okay with that?
Yep. Points that way.
Okay. And Marcus needs some time here to give notice to ThinkSpace and stuff, so do I have a motion based off the audit recommendation and IT to terminate ThinkSpace contract, which would go into effect July 1?
Make that motion.
Okay. Second. Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. Do you have anybody else have any input to that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. And I also want to say thank you. ThinkSpace was with us 11 years. It's been a long
7 years,
time.
yeah.
They provided us a service that we needed, especially not having somebody on board here all the time. And so we're trying to, again, take that next step and take an improvement. I know there's been some challenges, especially with 911 over there on both sides. So we'll move forward with that. Then next on the agenda, recommendation, again from Taryn and IT, to move forward with hiring a IT support person. I know you guys will help us put together a job description, help with the hiring process, but we formally need the board to be on board with moving forward so they can start putting things together and getting somebody hired. So when July 1 comes, hopefully maybe a little before that, we can hit the ground running. So anybody else have anything to add to that or questions? Pretty agreeable group here today.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, motion to move forward with IT support in-house.
Make that motion.
Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. I want to thank the IT committee, Taryn, the guys with the audit, everybody. It's been a team effort and we'll continue to need that moving forward. So I appreciate everybody's efforts there. Okay? Okay. Thank you. At this time, we're going to enter closed session from Iowa Code 21.5, Section 1A, Iowa Code 227-50, 2017 for the Shelby County IT security audit discussion. So thanks everybody for coming today. Appreciate it. And we'll see you next meeting.